They have the wrong thought about the home. They have the wrong thought about the home. I don't know why I have to pay for somebody else's budget. That's what this is about. Property taxes, you're paying. Like, why am I supporting you? Don't you have to figure it out?
Or for each county.
Oh, hey, Chris, how are you doing?
I took care of my finances. I got
Hey, you know, interesting experience. Should I do it again? I don't know.
We can figure it out. How are you? Yeah, hanging in. Oh my gosh.
That was way too much. Oh.
Good evening, everybody.
No. Let me get the sound man.
Working hard?
Now everything here, no? Now everybody can hear me. Good evening, everybody. Thank you very much for coming. May you please stand for prayer. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory, forever. Amen. Please remain standing for the pledge. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic which stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everybody. Pre-speakers, I want to thank everybody who's come tonight. Who's brand new? Anybody brand new tonight? Besides you, brand new, Mr. Key? Amen. So you'll be here next month too. We have a way of working that around. One gets paid here. We need help with bakers and hospitality. Bernadette, are you around, Bernadette? Raise your hand back there. I'm going to embarrass you for a second. There you go. I have a sign-up sheet for just baking for every meeting. People do come from work. They are hungry to grab something. They really appreciate it. So if you can contact with Bernadette, I will put a sheet around. And you don't have to bake every meeting. There's only one meeting a month. So if you know that you can't make next month's, don't volunteer for next month. Let us know June, July. Our next meeting would be, I think Brian, I said June 18th, thank you. For the best secretary ever, Lake County, the Village Coalition. Could you give her a good big hand? You have no ideas how many times she keeps me straight, literally.
We work together.
Thank you, Deb. So if we could do that. So we have so many speakers. We have our pre-speakers. We are going to talk tonight first to Molly Makila, who's going to be talking about lots of things. She has 5 minutes, and Mrs. Molly Makila.
Marcel Servich is running for Secretary of State. He's a citizen candidate, which is different for those positions. He is a man of strong faith, a family man. He lives in Dayton. He's a 20-year veteran of the Air Force. He has 3 small children, and he is very much into election integrity. One-day voting, paper ballots, no machines, and citizens only. And I have his card, which I will give you so you can look up more information about him. But he's very, very impressive. And I also have Grassroots Freedom Initiative cards. You can go on the website and sign up. I think it only asks for your email, and it works for the whole state, what's going on in the state, to educate and to inform people what events and what information we needed. Once a week. I think it's Sundays. McFan, which is a Patriot Club in Medina, they're having Tom Haviland come. And Tom Haviland is a gentleman who's been studying and continue to study the fibrous white clots that embalmers have found in people who took the COVID shot. And that is Saturday, June 14th at 9 at the Thirsty Cowboy in Medina. And there's a movie out called The American Miracle. And it concerns that our country was based on God and miracles that happened. And it is June 9th, 10th, and 11th only at the Menor Mall next to Hobby Lobby, 4 and 7 o'clock. And you can look it up on theamericanmiraclemovie.com. And in Chardon, I'm on the committee, so that's advertising. Hope for the Heart family event, Saturday, June 28th from 2 to 8 in Chardon's tent. And I have some flyers, but not enough for everybody, but it would be real nice to see some folks there. So I will give you what information I have so you can research Marcel Sturbridge for sure.
Thank you very much. Always trying to promote good candidates. Linda O'Brien was supposed to be here tonight. Everybody knows Linda O'Brien from Liberty Camp, but she told me that she's running for school board in Venture. And that's quite an endeavor. So if she comes in tonight, we'll give her some time at the end. So without further ado, our coroner, Mr. Keith. Brian's going to go last. Yeah, yes. Brian's going to let us know how well we did on that petition. Okay. Most hated man in Lake County. Mr. Keith, our coroner, like man.
I don't want to compete with that, that's for sure.
You don't get a complaint, though.
I don't. Well, thank you very much for having me. Brian, thank you very much for inviting me.
You're welcome, neighbor. I appreciate it very much.
We are neighbors. He's a good neighbor. Very well. I am a doctor. I'm a pathologist, and doctors have to have PowerPoint slide presentations, so that's what I'm going to do. And hopefully it won't be too boring. What I want to do is present some slides and then turn it over or make it into an audience participation type of thing to keep everyone awake. Is there a way that the lights can go down a little bit more? I don't want to induce sleep, but that's better. Okay, very good. So, Lake County Coroner's Office, that's something I've become passionate about. The first Lake County Coroner was from 1840, so that's over 185 years ago. And despite 185 years, most people don't really know what the coroner does and how they do it. In fact, a lot of doctors, when I talk with them, they have absolutely no idea what I do. So hopefully I want to clear that up. But one thing's for certain, if you watch TV over the years, it's always on TV, and there's a number of TV shows. I don't know if you've seen what shows you've seen, but like Forensic Files, CSI, The Coroner. He's got a gray beard just like me. But I don't think I've ever seen that one. Dr. G. And does anyone recognize this one? Quincy. So when I was in junior high and high school, I used to love this show. It was one of my favorite shows. So this is what sort of got me interested in medicine to begin with. So I love it. But believe it or not, everyday life for the coroner is not like TV. I'm sure you're blown away by that, but it really isn't. So I want to give you what it's really like. And sort of coming back to reality, on a daily and a weekly basis, we're working with people, and it's the worst day of their life. And think about that. It's pretty overwhelming. It's overwhelming for family members, loved ones, our staff. It can be very difficult as well. But it's humbling to try to help people in that situation. So we have to remember we're not trying to solve all their problems. We're just trying to help them along the way. And we can help them by answering questions for them. That's what we try to do. So first of all, I'd like to tell you about our office and just briefly run through it. We're an independent county office. We're independent from the prosecutor. We're independent from the public defender, the sheriff's office. We're small, but we maintain our independence, which is important. So I'm the county coroner, and I'm a pathologist by training. I spent 25 years at Lake Hospital as a pathologist. Deputy Coroner, Dr. Mark Comar, who you might recognize his name. He was the coroner for a number of years. And then the most important part of our office are our death investigators. So we have 3 full-time and 1 part-time and a few PRN people that cover death investigation. So they're actually very important. They're the ones that they get the calls when a death happens. They get called, and they decide how much they want or need to investigate those deaths. So our physical office is right on the 2nd floor of the health district building there. And I got 3 of them to stand in front of a camera. So on the left is Liz, and back is Nick, and Mary's on the right. And we have kind of a mixture of medical experience and law enforcement experience. And it's good to have those 2 different perspectives. So our death investigation, it's not an 8 to 5 job. If someone dies at 2 o'clock in the morning, the coroner's called. So they're on call 24/7. And it gets to be a little much, but they're able to manage it. So just going through the office, we're on the 2nd floor. This is Mary's desk, office management. We have a conference room, which we, at least once a week, we have a conference where all the investigators present their cases, and we learn from each other's cases, and that's pretty important. We have a small laboratory. We don't do autopsies there. We do them in the hospital. But sometimes we have to get pill containers from decedents, and we have to count the pills to check for an overdose. That's my office, and my best friend, the microscope. And that's Lake West Medical Center in Willoughby. That's where we do our autopsies. And there's a small morgue. Brian, you visited this?
Yes, it is rather small. Yes, I would attest to that.
So that's our autopsy room. And Dennis Keeney observing the autopsy as well. He's gotten the talk. Okay, so what does the coroner do? So the coroner is a public official whose job it is to investigate deaths. But not every death is investigated. We only investigate about 30% of deaths in Lake County. And the ones we do investigate are sudden, unexpected deaths, violent deaths, suspicious deaths, just any non-natural deaths. Those are the ones we investigate. And really, I have 3 jobs. First thing I do is we have to make sure that we have an identification, we have a cause of death, and we have a manner of death. So those are the 3 jobs. And just very quickly, going through these 3 things. Number 1, identification. Most of that can be done by just looking at a body. Looking at the face, looking at a government-issued ID like a driver's license. 95% of the time we make that identification that way. If for some reason we can't, if it's a burn victim, if there's decomposition, we'll have to use a scientific method, fingerprints, dental comparison, or DNA testing. So we also have to figure out the cause of death. So that's just, why did they die? And we can use different things to try to figure that out. Medical history is the most common. We'll talk to the doctors. We'll get medical records. We'll go to the scene of the death to see if there's anything at the scene that gives us a clue of why the patient or the person passed away. Some cases we have to order an autopsy or do toxicology or other tests to try to figure that out. So that's number two. The third thing is determining the manner of death. And that refers to the circumstances around the death. And in Ohio, there are 5 different types: natural, accident, suicide, homicide, or undetermined. So why this is important is it's very important to the prosecutor's office. If there's a suspicion, they need evidence to pursue a murder charge, for instance, in a homicide. Or insurance companies are very anxious to get information on accidents. So in Lake County, it's interesting, about 1% of the population passes away every year. So last year we had about 2,600 deaths, and the coroner's office doesn't handle all of those deaths. We only handle the ones that are reported to us, and about 30%, give or take, about 800 cases a year are reported to us. So how do we decide which cases to look into further or investigate? And it's the deaths that raise very compelling questions of public interest. So these are cases that, as a community, we really need to know the answers. So kind of similar to what I mentioned before, if I'm going to take a case as a coroner's case, if I'm going to take jurisdiction of that case, these are the deaths that are non-natural. So homicides, suspicious cases, accidents, sudden unexpected death when a person appears at a work site, or death while in custody. Those tend to be high-profile deaths that we spend a lot of time investigating. All right, so those kind of boring slides, but what I want to do now is kind of an audience participation type phase. But first of all, I'm going to make you the coroner, and now I'm going to give you some authority. So the Ohio Revised Code has certain laws that give the coroner certain powers. It's against the law to move or disturb a dead body. So when a body's found, they call the police call us, and we have to decide whether we take that body as a coroner's case and do an investigation, or there's nothing to be learned from an investigation, we can just release the body to the funeral home. The other thing is that when we decide to investigate and we go to a death scene, the coroner or our staff do not need a search warrant. So law enforcement have to get search warrants to search the house. The other thing is we have the ability to subpoena documents and people to get information to try to figure out what's going on. And then we can order autopsies, toxicology, and whatnot to figure it out. Okay, so first case. I'm just going to give you a few situations and see what you would do. So we have a 66-year-old woman who collapsed and died in front of her husband. She has a past history of high blood pressure and diabetes, and she was a smoker for a number of years. So do you think this is a case that the coroner needs to investigate for the public good?
No.
Everyone got it 100% right. So it's an older person, 66. They're not that old. I'm getting up there. But, it's funny because our cutoff is about 50 years old. If they're younger than 50, then we really investigate. If they're older 50, probably think twice. But, she has natural disease. She has high blood pressure, diabetes, and a smoker. So those are all risk factors for atherosclerosis and heart disease. So this is the case. We would not do any investigation. We would turn it over to the person's primary care doctor to sign that death certificate.
Yeah, but wait, how do we know that the husband just called in and said she died in front of me and he really wanted her gone and killed her?
Yeah, well, that's a good question. So when a death occurs, when someone finds a body, they don't call us first. They call the police. So the police will come to the scene. The police do their investigation. Then they call us, and they'll tell us that it all adds up. Doesn't look suspicious. But they might say, we're seeing a couple red flags. We're not sure about this and that. In that situation, we would send an investigator, one of our investigators, out to do our own. So often, we'll have the police investigation, we'll have our investigation, which we're cooperative and overlap some. Yes.
Dr. Keith, how do you interact with the Lake County Crime Lab?
The crime lab and the coroner's office are completely different, and we don't have any overlapping activities. Sometimes we will use the crime lab to submit evidence to. For instance, and it's usually through the police. So if there is maybe a drug overdose case, and we find powder at the scene, the police will take that powder and submit that to the crime lab for analysis.
I thought the crime lab went to the scene of the crime. No?
In other certain situations, okay. Yes, they do. They do.
All right.
Yeah.
What if the surviving spouse, they have an agreement, they've got a piece of property and they're just going to bury their loved one on their own property, and they just do that?
Yeah, I'm not sure what state law says about that, but it's usually in cooperation with funeral homes and how they do that.
You have to have a funeral, sign a death certificate.
Right.
But I didn't know if that.
Yeah, that's a little out of the coroner's expertise, but it's state law, and funeral homes can guide people with that. Yes.
If somebody passes away in a hospital, who determines if there is an autopsy? Like, are there certain laws?
Right. So if there's a death in hospital, the hospital will call the coroner's office if it's within 24 hours of admission, and then we'll get the story. We'll decide if there's any issues that make it a coroner's case. Does it look like an accident, suicide, or anything else? If it's completely natural, and natural is disease or aging, then we would not take jurisdiction of it. It goes back to the hospital. Now, a patient's family could request an autopsy to be done, and the hospital will do that for them.
What if the body's being transferred from one state to another because the person wants to be buried in that other state? Is there an autopsy required for that?
No, there's no autopsy required. And I know that happens, but funeral homes know all about that, and we're not really involved with that part of it.
Well, that was my question. Who transports the body to the morgue?
Good question. So if someone passes away at their apartment or their home, let's say a coroner investigator goes out and does a death scene investigation, we will call a service that transports bodies. So they do that for us.
So then that is a coroner jurisdiction then?
Yes, yeah. We have to stay with the body until the transport comes. We put the body in a bag, and we close the bag, and then they transport to our morgue.
Away inside the house, the protocol is call the cops, call the people who you've already prearranged, who told you to call them, and they remove the body. So first the cops, then the business, and that's it, right?
Correct. And that's mostly if it's kind of an unexpected death. But if it's a hospice patient, you might have plans that you don't need to call the police. If there's been a fracture or something that makes it non-natural. But
like if you're dying of ALS, and you decide to die at home, then you would call the coroner.
Yes.
What happens if somebody, like, say, from Nebraska gets a severe accident and dies, or who gets the jurisdiction over the body?
The jurisdiction is determined by where the person dies. So if they die on I-90, it's a Lake County case, even though they're in a different state. So we can go quickly through a few more of these. 83-year-old woman with dementia for several years, found dead in the morning in her bed at the nursing home. History of heart attack 20 years ago. Do you think that would be a coroner's case that we need to investigate?
No.
Would it be yes? I think most would say no, unless there's been a fracture or something that makes it non-natural.
There was elder abuse. That could happen, elder abuse. It can be.
That, I mean, you're bringing up a different point, whether there's gross neglect, and that could be a coroner. Yeah, if there's gross neglect or abuse, that becomes a coroner's case.
So that one is a maybe.
It depends, right?
Those are all the facts. So there
So,
was no bruising.
Here's one that's, I'll see what people think about this. So this happens every year, by the way. 50-year-old man collapses and dies while shoveling snow during the first major snowstorm of the year.
Probably not. Because you know he was shoveling snow.
Yes.
I don't know, maybe if the guy was like healthy, then there would be. It depends.
You're right.
No history of heart problems, then yeah.
So the answer is either one, yes or no, or both correct answers. So if it's a 50-year-old that has had 2 heart attacks in the past, and this happens, we would not do much of any investigation. We wouldn't do an autopsy. He has heart disease. If it's a 50-year-old that's perfectly healthy, we might do an autopsy. What if he was doing this Saturday night and he wasn't found till Sunday morning by neighbors? Is that a coroner's case?
It could be.
Probably.
I would agree with you, Faith, because an external factor being the cold weather, hypothermia, might have contributed to the death.
Right.
So it might be accidental. So that would be a coroner's case. So, okay, someone is walking at one of our excellent metro parks, or jogging, and comes across this. There's actually 2 pictures. There's 2 separate. They're very close together, but had they call the police, and the police calls the coroner's office. So, as a coroner, what would you do in this situation?
You have to identify whether they're human.
Try to identify the
Are they
body.
human bones?
DNA.
Human bones.
You have to go through DNA tests in there.
Right. So what we did and what we do, because this, during the summer, and spring and summer, it happens all the time, the police put all the bones in a bag and they send it to our office, and then we look at the bones. And we have a skeleton next to us, and we're able to match the bones up. These are just animal bones. Okay. So you have to, someone had the right answer. They're either animal bones or not. We had a situation several years ago where the family dog brought a skull to the front door, and that was obvious. That was a human, but so we don't really have to make a formal report. You can just say animal bones, and they can be discarded. Okay. So next one, a couple more. 45-year-old man found dead
Could be suspicious.
in bed in a local hotel, which is an extended stay hotel. What do you think?
Coroner's office.
That's got to be a coroner's case. I would say in addition to that, I'm sending an investigator out to look at that. 45 years old, it's pretty young. Whenever a hotel... What? Whenever a hotel is involved, we get kind of antsy about that. People go to hotels to do drugs, prostitution, human trafficking. So we
Party.
go to a lot of hotels. So this 45-year-old was brought back to the morgue, and he didn't have any injuries. There was nothing externally that I could say this might have caused his death. But the next picture I'm going to show is what the investigator found inside the hotel room, and it clears up some things. So he's been there a while, and that's his beer collection.
Oh, beer can collection.
So the cause of death in this case is chronic alcoholism, no surprise, but it can show you that if you just are looking at the body on an autopsy table, you'd be hard pressed. I mean, if you have this information, it makes it much easier.
If you drink that much, the liver would be messed up, you know.
Well, right. I was just looking at it before we got the organs out. So.
Maybe he'd be yellow. Time period on all that alcohol. I mean, real quick. Well, extended stay, how long is he there?
I'm not sure.
He was there about.
Now, would this be a natural death or non-natural death?
Oh, that's suicide.
Not natural. He drank himself to death.
Yeah. It's funny. These are all right answers, but the tradition or the rule of thumb for medical examiners and coroners is when chronic alcohol is involved, they're natural deaths. Okay. But if you have an 18-year-old that's never had a drink before and they're drinking to keep up with their friends and they die of alcohol poisoning, that's an accidental death. All right, 25-year-old man who was hit by a car on Interstate 90. This was at like 2 o'clock.
The coroner would be involved in that.
Hit and run.
You're right. It could be suicide. It could be accident.
It could be hit and run too.
Yeah. This individual ran out of gas, and they were carrying their gas can and running across I-90 when he was hit. So. And then this one, 61-year-old, found it in his apartment. He has a history of drug abuse. There's a plastic bag with white powder located near his body. So the police call us and say this is a suspicious drug overdose case. So naturally, this is going to be a coroner's case. We're going to take jurisdiction. We're going to do toxicology, probably an autopsy, but not necessarily, to determine whether it's a drug overdose. And those can be, they're mostly accidental, but they can be suicide.
Who pays for an autopsy?
It's county paid. Yeah, county taxpayer general fund. And so that brings up a good point because, we have to sort of live within our means, obviously. So, and that's why I'm so happy with the group of investigators we have. So before, we had newer investigators that weren't trained very well, and when you have newer people, didn't have as much trust in them, and in that situation, I would order autopsies, toxicology, x-rays more often, and each test is costs, that's taxpayer money being paid. So when you have good people that know what they're doing, we can really streamline things and not test a lot and still get the same information. So. All right, one or two more. 4-month-old infant, female, found unresponsive in her crib.
It could be SIDS, it could be something else.
Yeah. So unfortunately, this happens. We have a few every year. They're awfully devastating, but again, it could be a natural death, could be pneumonia, meningitis,
SIDS?
Could be SIDS, could be
child abuse
or neglect, or it could be sleeping with the mother, and we've had situations where there's overlay and there's suffocation. So, all right, this is the last one. So this actually was a case I had in Cleveland. I changed a little bit around. 44-year-old paralyzed man was in the hospital for a bad urinary tract infection. and he died of sepsis, which sepsis is just overwhelming infection that causes death.
Isn't that called blood poisoning?
Yeah, exactly. And so that all sounds natural, but if you dig a little further, 20 years ago, he was working at a convenience store and suffered a gunshot wound to the neck, and that's why he became paralyzed from the neck down in an armed robbery attack. So even though that was 20 years ago, this is a homicide, and there's no statute of limitations on homicide. So the bullet was still in the neck, so when we did the autopsy, we had to retrieve the bullet, and that was evidence for potential trial, because it's a homicide case now. So hopefully with that information I've given, bottom line is we don't want to miss a homicide, as you brought up. We want to be skeptical. We don't want to overdo, though. We want to just kind of be right. We don't want to miss these cases. At the same time, we want innocent people to be exonerated.
You don't want to put the wrong person in jail, because that costs more money than when he sues.
Sure. Evidence will be preserved for court, so our investigators are always searching for evidence, and they're taking pictures, which is evidence also. Health hazards will be recognized. We've had a couple cases of carbon monoxide poisoning. We had a homeless woman living in a car in a parking lot, and it was an old, beat-up car, and the exhaust wasn't working properly, and she died of carbon monoxide poisoning. So we found that at autopsy, but it was important to make sure that anyone else who got that car again, that we'd have to either get rid of the car or have it fixed, or you have another carbon monoxide death. So we can play a role in preventing death as well. So the goal is prevention. So I just wanted to open it up to questions. I know I anticipated a question on the drug overdose situation. So I combed our county coroner files way back till 1977, if you can read that. 77 till almost today, and how that curve has changed. You'll notice that 2023 and then 2024, which is not included, have gone down. So our drug overdose cases have gone down about 30%, and that's been mirrored in Cleveland, in the state of Ohio, and also across the country. So in the last couple of years, if this holds, and I hope it holds, we have made a dent in it. But that dent, we're not back nearly to the 1970s, 80s, and early 90s, where we just had a handful of deaths from overdose.
Just say no.
That's Nancy Reagan, right? In the 80s, that's where her mantra was. Any questions?
Yeah, so back to the infants. So when an infant dies after vaccines, which apparently it's becoming more and more common, how does the coroner respond to that?
Yeah, so those are probably the most difficult cases, the baby cases. And we look at everything. We get all of the records from the maternal pregnancy, the birth records, the pediatric records. So we look at all the therapy the patient has had, vaccinations we'll look at as well. And we do a lot of laboratory testing as well. So, in cases that have been, fatalities due to vaccination, some of them have been hypersensitivity reactions or allergic reactions. And we have a specific test that we can test for that we do.
And then how is it reported? I mean, because it's kind of a drug overdose if you look at vaccines as a drug. And then who's the responsible party for not clearing the child and maybe, I don't know, I'm heavy metal poisoning possibly. I mean, I don't know how deep the tests go.
Yeah, heavy metal poisoning we don't test for unless we're tipped off to that direction. But I'll tell you, if there's a time sequence where it's looking like an allergic reaction, we'll do the testing for that. And if we do find that it's an allergic reaction to a vaccine, that would be an accidental death.
You report to VAERS?
Yeah, yes. Yeah.
Just VAERS?
Well, our report is a standalone report, and we do a death certificate. So all the death certificates are sent to the state and then sent nationally. So all that data goes to the state and it goes to the federal vital statistics as well.
So I'm sure somebody's going to ask the question about the clot shot. Can you talk a little bit about that? And what's been found that people, that white...
They really true that they're finding all those plots and stuff?
I would like to see studies on that, and I don't think I read a lot of studies, and I've not read any peer-reviewed scientific studies showing that.
I'm talking about from the United States or foreign country.
Pardon me?
You're not going to find them in the States. You're going to have to go elsewhere.
Right. If
Have you found yourself pulling out these long plots out of some of these people?
No.
They don't do any embalming at the coroner's office. You would probably need to talk to somebody that does
Right.
that kind of stuff. But if
You
you
might not be there, right.
Yeah.
It won't be the coroner aspect, it will be somebody who's on top of the
Yeah, I'll tell you one thing, and we learned this throughout our medical education and residency, is trying to tell the difference between a clot before someone passes away and a postmortem clot. Postmortem clot happens all the time. You're always going to have postmortem clots. So there's certain characteristics of the clot that you can determine whether it happened during life or after death.
Also, they say it causes myocarditis, so sometimes a COVID vaccine.
That's a very interesting question. So myocarditis, I've seen a few times at autopsy. I think I'm getting close to 1,400 autopsies total. I've only seen myocarditis maybe a handful of times, maybe 4 or 5 times. And since, COVID-19 era, I've not seen it once. And in all the autopsies I do, I make sure that I take a section of the heart so I would be able to tell if a person had myocarditis or not. If they have it, it's not subtle. There's inflammation throughout the heart muscle. It's there. If it's not there, it's not there. And you can't look at the heart just by your naked eye. It has to be microscopic. But, it's been described as a complication of the infection, COVID-19. And it's been described as a reaction to the COVID-19 vaccine. But I have not, in all the cases I've done recently since COVID started, I've not seen one. So we're talking about something that's very rare. But you have to understand, all the coroner's offices throughout the state feed their data, and all the states around the country feed their data to, the national, where all that is tabulated. Right.
Yeah, how adequate do you feel your facility is? I did observe it, and I noticed where you're storing the dead bodies. You could use some help with that in that area.
So we're at Lake West. It's, the hospital was built in 1960. The morgue was built for 1960. The hospital's a lot busier now. An obese person in 1960 was maybe 250 pounds. And we have people that are 400, 500 pounds. So it's very difficult. So it's just difficult for us to move bodies around, store bodies. Sometimes we can't fit the body in the cooler, and we have to, leave the body in room temperature and put bags of ice on the body.
I think you had a maximum of what? Was it 6 bodies that you could store in?
6. And during the pandemic era, we didn't have enough room. So we were overflowing. We had bodies we weren't able to store. Fortunately, we could store some of those in Cleveland, but it got pretty hairy for a couple of years there. Yes?
If the family requests an autopsy, is the coroner's office the only one that can do it, or could the hospital also?
If the patient has been in the hospital, admitted, the family can always ask for an autopsy. And there's no charge to the family.
Who does the autopsy?
The hospital.
The hospital.
The coroner will not seize. We have situations where, unfortunately, in some of the cases I presented, like the first couple cases, we might have a family member say, well, I really want to know why the person died, so can you please do an autopsy? And we struggle with that because you want to serve the family, you want to answer questions for people, but if we did that for every case, we would do 800 autopsies versus we just do 100 a year now. So we really don't have the resources to do that. So often we'll have to say we're not able to do that autopsy because it's not really indicated.
One more, and that's the last one. Could the person then, like if you are not able to do it, could they move the body to someplace else that would be able to do
Yeah,
that?
they can have a private autopsy done. Yes.
Well, Mr. Keith, will you be around here for the rest
Sure,
of the week?
yeah, I will be here.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'll come up with like 20 more questions while you're sitting. I'll come up and so expect more questions. Without further ado, Faith Andrews, our former.
You're the mic.
Oh, I'm sorry. We'll ask you the mic upstairs.
There we go. Pay no attention to the date. I don't remember what year it is. I keep forgetting. Okay. My presentation today this evening is on central committees. And the question you should be asking yourself is, what are they and why should you care? But before I move forward, show of hands, how many people know who their central committeeman is? Their precinct central committeeman? Okay, that's not very many. How many of you have, and the people that are central committeemen, that does not count. Yeah, okay. So for those of you who do, have you ever heard from them? Ever? Okay. That's why I'm here. Okay, the Ohio Revised Code 3517.03 is the controlling statute for central committees. Both parties, it does not matter. The governing body, they are the governing body of political parties, and then bylaws govern the central committee. The central committeemen are elected officials. Elected officials, you do vote for them. They're 2-year terms. There's 163 precincts in Lake County, and there's about 1,000 voters per precinct. And they're grouped into districts within the central committee, and in Lake County there's 21 districts. So the executive committee of the central committee is made up of officers elected by the full central committee. And there's 7 in Lake County. There's 1 voting executive committee member for each district. That's 21. There are 2, possibly 4 special executive committee members. The immediate past chairman of the local party, the finance director, and the state central committeeman. If they live in Lake County. Denise Verdi used to be a state central committeeman, so she had a vote locally because she lives in Lake County. Now she's on the school board. We need her there too. So that means that 30, possibly 32 people make up the executive committee. Now again, I don't know about the Democrats, and frankly I don't care. Just the Republicans, that's what I know about. But I think it works the same way for them too. 32 people make up the executive committee. Let that thing sink in. We just saw Mr. Keep's population, 230, I think you said, 1,000 people in Lake County. 32 people make up the executive committee, and most decisions for the local party are made by the executive committee. Now, maybe that's not a big deal, but keep that in mind as I move through the slides. 32 people at the executive committee. All right. So what do? Well, they determine which candidates get endorsements. And again, most of those endorsements are made by the executive committee. The only time a full central committee makes endorsements, makes a decision, is that there's 2 people running for the same seat. They determine which candidates receive financial and volunteer help. They define the local party platform. They fill vacancies in the central committee precincts. They assist candidates by knocking doors and making robocalls. They attend events, stand at polling locations on election day. They make recommendations to the governor for appointments of judges. Judge De Leon, the juvie judge, and Judge Patton, the appellate judge, were 2 recommendations made by the Central Committee that the governor did listen to. But here's the biggie. This is what most people don't think. And I had the wrong population there, so I don't know where the heck I got that information. So we're a little bit more than what I thought. But we make appointments to a county elected, official position. Okay, so again, we're talking about a very, very small number of people that are making a decision for the entirety of Lake County, for that many people. So, what county appointments has the Lake County Republican Party made? Well, all appointments that I'm mentioning here were made by less than 100 people. Again, don't forget, there's 232,000 of folks in Lake County. Auditor Chris Galloway was appointed by secret ballot. Secret ballot is illegal per the Ohio Supreme Court in State XL Ray Moore Bratnall versus Bratnall, 157 Ohio. You can read the rest of that. Lobbyists for Citizens informed the GOP Central Committee. Did you not, Brian? Because I was there with you. I'm the one that found the actual Supreme Court case. And they didn't do a thing. Auditor Galloway was illegitimate for 2 years. What did he do in those 2 years? I don't know. Apparently nobody cared. The people are forced to sue for redress, like what was done in Bratnall, either through legal counsel, which costs a bunch of money, with no monetary payout, maybe if you're lucky, attorney's fees, or you can try to navigate the convoluted and very confusing legal system, again, by design, as a pro se litigant. Typically that doesn't work out very well. And most people can't, if you're not an attorney, you can't help, even if you do know how to practice law, the procedure and process, you cannot help that person because then you're going to be in trouble for practicing law without a license. That's why we have to be very careful. I had to be very careful as the clerk of court. And my heart broke, for these pro se litigants, but I couldn't help them. I couldn't tell them how to do it at all. Commissioner John Plechnik was appointed by voice vote. They got it right that time. They made darn sure there wasn't going to be any issue there with an illegitimate commissioner. And then Commissioner Mark Tyler. Something that happened recently in 2024 that concerns me. I am a central committeeman, by the way. Okay, so just so you know. The Lake GOP changed their bylaws in 2024 to allow for a former member of the Central Committee to serve as an officer. So let me ask a few questions. What happens if a Central Committeeman who's an officer, big leader of the party, on the Executive Committee loses their precinct seat? Well, they'll just put him right back on as an officer. Your vote matters not. If the people of a precinct decide they want new leadership by replacing their precinct committeeman, does this bylaw change, in essence, nullify your vote? I think it does. Does the bylaw change make it more difficult for the people to change the leadership of their party? I think it does. And here's some meaningless trivia. Chairman Dale Fellows and Commissioner John Plechnik were challenged for their Central Committee seats in the 2024 primary, before that bylaw change was made. So I think as a Central Committeeman, real change is needed. I think we need to eliminate the two-tier system and the party at all levels. The two-tier system of justice starts at the local level party machine. Period. Enforcement of bylaws should be applied equally to all central committee and committeemen and elected officials, not just some, not just the ones they don't like. Censure should be applied equally to all central committeemen and elected officials. We need to eliminate the pay-to-play in Ohio. I just watched the Ohio Confidential about the householder thing, and I bought the book written by the now deceased super lobbyist, Neil Clark. Found shot to death outside. Suicide, though. We need to vet Republican candidates to elect patriots rather than non-thinking order takers, or worse, those with a personal agenda.
Rhinos.
You got it. We need to have mandatory caucus with all districts before any endorsement is given. And we need to obtain promises. Y'all need to obtain promises from candidates to adhere to the party platform, with penalties and reprimand and censure if they don't. Are you guys tired of being told what you want to hear during election time, and then they just basically kick you to the curb once they're in? It's pathetic. It just is pathetic. And I just think there needs to be much better communication with the electorate, between the central committeemen and the electorate. And not just election time either. There's an issue with that a little bit because, and we got to find a way with it. Today's technology, there should be an easy way to do it. Right now, the only way that people get in touch with you is to send you something by snail mail. There's got to be a better way. Like I said, we need to figure it out. So what can you do? Well, if I were you, I would attend Central Committee meetings. The Executive Committee for the Republican Party meets the last Monday of every month at GOP headquarters on Liberty Street. You have every right to be there. You elected us. You have every right to know what the heck we're up to. I would contact your central committeeman, and you can find that out by going to voter lookup. Look up your name, and then it'll tell you who it is. It won't tell you how to get a hold of them. You can look up their address. That's another thing that kills me. No phone numbers, no emails, nothing. We don't even get that amongst our own group. That's crazy. Request a copy, or request a meeting with your central committeeman, face-to-face. Ask for a copy of the current bylaws. Ask for a copy of your the local party platform and the meeting minutes for the last 2 years. Consider running for central committeeman in your precinct, either to fill a vacancy or replace an ineffective member. Demand accountability of your party central committee and get constitutional public servants elected, not career politicians. Make your elected officials accountable. Make sure they keep the promises that they made to you during election season. So here's some other questions to ponder, and maybe you can talk about this with your central committeeman once you find out who that is. How can I identify an ineffective deep state uniparty member? How involved are they? What's their meeting attendance like? Have you ever received a call or letter from them? And here's a biggie for me, should elected officials or spouses of elected officials serve as central committeemen? Do you think it's a conflict of interest? I do. Let me give you a list. Jerry Serino, he's a central committeeman. John Plechnik, he's a commissioner. Chris Galloway is the auditor. Becky Lynch is the recorder. Faith Andrews, former clerk of courts. These are all county officials. Judge De Leon's wife is on the central committee. And that doesn't include all of the townships and the cities. Multiple central committeemen are Eastlake, council members, township trustees. They're all government. They can vote themselves funding. they can vote for their endorsement is a conflict of interest. So, like I said, I didn't want to send you away without any kind of hope of what can you do. The biggest thing you can do is show up. Show up and start asking questions. We need real leadership change in the Republican Party. We do not want rhinos. We want change agents. People that work for you and no one else. Not a judge, not another elected official, not a donor. Any questions?
You bring this up at the meeting?
At the Central Committee meeting?
Yeah.
I'm not a voting district member. Now, for the good of the party, yes. And one of the things that I did when I first started as a Central Committeeman, brought a bunch of stuff up because Jerry Serino, at that time, was a city commissioner and endorsed a Democrat, Paul Malcheski, who then went on later to become a judge, a muni judge. I was having a small go calf over it because, what are you doing? What are you doing using your political clout as a sitting Republican endorsing a Democrat? Nobody would censure him. I was begging somebody to make a motion. They would not do it. And I even had the proof. This is why I'm telling you. Many people in the Central Committee are there for the wrong reason. They're there for their own personal agenda, or they need friends, it looks good on a resume. I don't know, but they're sure not there for you. They're not there to make changes. They're there for their own agenda. Now, there are some, that are there, but we're outnumbered. We always seem to be outnumbered. So, and then somebody does something stupid and breaks the party by endorsing Morris Beveridge against the sitting Republican John Hamerchak. There's a real split in the party, folks. Really, there is. I'm one of the people that wants to get rid of the Uniparty. The Uniparty's been around for a long time. And I mean that. They're in back rooms, smoking cigars, drinking bourbon, and deciding of the Democrats and the Republicans who's going to take office. And we'll run this person there, and you can have that. It's been that way since I've been a Central Committeeman. It's time for that to change. We're elected officials. You elect us. We have a job to do, and it's more than just being slave labor for the elected officials and the elite of the party. Yes, ma'am.
Is there a difference between the Executive Committee and the Central Committee?
The full Central Committee is, well, I think it's like 100, the slide is out one, but again, we can't even get the full Central Committee even to make an appointment, okay? These appointments that I should talk to you about, of 3 people, one of which was a commissioner, and one was an auditor who has got a lot of power. Less than 100 people did it. So the executive committee is made up of, like I said, 1 person from each of the 21 districts, and then 7 officers, and potentially 2 more special people. That's the difference. It's just a small subset of the full Central Committee that are making most of the decisions and driving pretty much everything.
But they're all elected.
Yeah, they're all elected. Well, wait a minute now. Now wait. Since the bylaws were changed, they could be appointed. So I can't say, yeah, before the bylaws changed, I would be able to answer your question, absolutely yes. But since the bylaws have been changed, no, I don't know. Again, if somebody loses, they can just put them right back on the executive committee by putting them in an office. They can serve as an officer, 1 of 7. Anybody else? Yes, ma'am.
What's the Uniparty?
Well, how many of you are really peeved that the Congress has not codified any of the stuff that DOJ has found, the waste, fraud, and abuse? Let's see how many people are really peeved about that. Okay? That's the Uniparty. They're Comp 2. 70% of our Congress federally is corrupt. If people do not believe that corruption exists at all 3 levels of government, they would be sorely mistaken. Like I said, the 2-tier system of justice starts at the local party level machine. So they're not going to do it. They're comp too.
So is uniparty?
The uniparty is basically an us versus them scenario. It's the people versus government. And it doesn't matter which party they're from. They're both screwing us. Yes, ma'am?
How do you get rid of these?
Well, you try to elect, put good people up. That's why I'm here. That's where it needs to start at the Central Committee. We need change agents. We need more Trumps here, okay? People who are not afraid to fight the system. That's what we need. Otherwise, you're going to get more of the same. And if you continue to elect the same people over and over again, that's insanity, man. If you expect anything to change, stop electing the same morons. Yes?
I need help understanding this, because I looked it up, who was on our committees, and this says 10/7 of 2024. Is that current?
Say that again, I'm sorry.
I looked it up.
You looked up what?
The Republican Central Committee.
Mm-hmm.
And the date says 10/7/24 was what came up. Is that the latest one? Because what's confusing is Denise Verity's on there, and I thought she wasn't.
No, it's not the latest one. I'm not sure. Where did you look it up? Did you look it up from the website?
I just did a search for it, and it went to Lake County, and then it says Ryan DeFranco, and I know that he's.
Yeah, no, it's probably not current.
So that's really great too, right?
Well, right. But again, if you were to go to Lake County voter lookup, and then look up your name.
Lake County, Ohio.
Lake County, Ohio voter lookup. Yeah, well, she knows. Yeah, because there's like how many Lake counties? Illinois, Florida. So yeah.
And then one of our people sitting right in here. Are you on the committee? Mm-hmm. Yeah, your name's on there.
Like I said, you guys need to get involved and hold their feet to the fire. If you continue to just, you should not be trusting your central committees to vet the candidates, okay? You should not. Because they do not have your best interest at heart. They do not.
Could this cause severe problems in the country if this keeps going like this?
I'm sorry?
Could it cause severe problems in this country, like political unrest, civil unrest eventually, if these people don't get voted out of there?
Well, I think so, maybe. I don't know. I don't know. It's hard to say. Try to get rid of a bad judge in this county if nobody's going to run against him. Chuck Colson's been in for 50 years. 50 years!
Prosecuting attorney.
Yeah, prosecutor. Nobody's going to run against him. Nobody will run against him. Why?
Takes money.
Are they afraid?
Takes a lot of money.
They're afraid. No, it doesn't. He sits back and are they afraid that if they run against a judge or if they run against a prosecutor that they'll never be able to do business in Lake County again, and God help their poor client? People are terrified of this bunch. I wasn't, except me.
They can't live forever. They can't live forever.
I know, but for God's sakes, don't be like South Carolina and vote for Strom Thurmond because, we're going to send him to one more year. Are you insane? Anyway. Yes, sir.
So there was talk of not funding candidates until after the primary, that the Central Committee would not make any decisions on funding candidates until after the primary. Did that happen?
Well, I got to tell you, Lake County Republican Party's kind of broke. I don't know that many people have gotten any funding. I know I sure didn't. So
State funding doesn't go down.
State funding does go down, does trickle down a little bit, but not a lot. Maybe for state reps, like somebody who's trying to take out Dan Troy, which is almost impossible. But state funding doesn't trickle down to local. And right now, until the party's fixed, I wouldn't donate for the Republican Party. I'd donate directly to candidates. Anybody else? Yes, ma'am.
Okay, please forgive me if I really sound stupid, but I really feel stupid. Where are we voting for these people?
Every primary, every 2 years, well, every 2 years during the primary, you guys are voting for whatever precinct you're in. And typically, there's not competition, it's just one person. So maybe you skip it because you don't know anything about it, or maybe because there's only one person, you just check the box. So, and it's further down. Yes, ma'am?
What are the qualifications for a committee member?
The central committeeman?
You gotta be alive.
Well, you gotta be a Republican or a Democrat, depending on the party, and in good standing. And that's where things get a little crazy. There's one person who tries to and he's a leader in the party, who tries to fill vacancies with people that are just loyal to him. I have a problem with that.
Yeah, me too.
There's another leader in the party who's not on the executive committee in terms of an officer, but he actually goes through their voting record. And he takes a look at what they've done. How many times have they voted? Did they poll a Republican in a primary? Did they vote issues only? All of it. Then he talks to them personally, kind of get their take on things. Then he asks for them, to give us a hand and run. And that's, I prefer that method. Because, that's part of why we are where we are, when people stack the deck, stack the central committee with just people that are loyal to them, or that they think are going to vote their way for a particular thing. That's not looking at you. That's not caring about what's best for you guys and what you want. And really what we should be doing as central committeemen. Just getting any old Republican elected is not good enough. We need MAGA people. We need patriots. We're tired of the same old dull routine. How about you?
How do you convince the voters to do that, though? That's the problem.
Well, that's why I'm doing this today. And by the way, I'm going to have a website up, Truth Badger News. I'm going to kind of jump off of what Brian's doing. Brian and I have known each other and been working together since 2018. We worked on the Better Flop together, exposing that. And we got some things changed with the Visitors Bureau that was illegal. They changed it. They never admitted that it was illegal, but they sure changed it. And so we did do some good. Send me an email if you want to copy the presentation, faith@truthbadgernews.com. The website will be up in a couple of weeks. Mom's been visiting me, so I've been a little busy. She's keeping me hopping. So, I'm going to be I'm not going to be as, Brian's just got me beat. It's going to take me some time to catch him. But, I'll be trying to put some stuff up once a week. I've got social media. I've got an X account. I've got a Facebook account. So maybe try to do some videos and stuff. I'm going to be learning from this guy. He's good at what he does.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Can you give me a brief, how many times you have to go to Columbus per year as a Central Committee member? Because I remember Denise Verdi going down 3-4 times a year.
That I don't know because I have not been a state central committee.
Okay.
I don't know.
Okay.
As an elected official, you could go once a month.
Right, that's what I thought, about once a month. Right. I'm trying to give people an idea of time commitment here.
Yeah.
I used to follow Denise Verdi a lot when she was a Central Committee member. And I remember her saying going to Columbus and so forth. So, without further ado, we're going to hear from our president, Brian Massey, with an update on how successful our first petition was. Yay! Our president and patriot hero, Brian Massey.
Hero, I don't know about that. Thank you very much. We were successful. Our first pass, trying to get the initiative petition to actually abolish the property taxes. We got 1,843 votes, signatures rather, and we only needed 1,000. So four of us. It was John and Vesna and Lynn Crane and myself went down to the Attorney General's office, and the reception there was less than stellar, to be honest with you. They didn't want us there. I mean, my goodness, even the police officers, after we finally got them to allow one of us to go up there and wait for them to acknowledge that they got our package of all the signatures, they were willing to just come down to the front door. At least we got into the building, but we couldn't get really into the building. But we said we want some sort of receipt that we drop these off. That didn't seem like a big demand, but that was a real problem. And we said, no, we're not leaving without a receipt. Good. So they allowed me to go up there. There was nobody in the building. It's just amazing. There was no one in the building. I went up there and she said, well, you sit here and I'll go in the back. So I sat there and 10 minutes or so I'm wandering around, looking at the paintings on the walls. And she comes back, okay, I signed for it. I don't know who. She said, well, this is not good enough. We need a stamp from the Attorney General on there. Oh, that threw her into a tizzy. She didn't know what to do. So she finally went down into the basement or something, and she got somebody to stamp it. And I said, well, I'll come with you. And the police officer said, no, you guys are done here. I said, what? That's what they said. We are citizens, right? And you're supposed to... We're peasants. That's really well. Anyway, we finally got that, and then the Attorney General sent a letter, and we happen to have it on the back table there, to the Secretary of State LaRose and the ballot board. And the Attorney General said that it was a valid constitutional amendment. But the ballot board's role was to determine, was it one constitutional amendment or were there multiple? We said we were going to abolish it. We said, well, that's pretty clean. It's one thing. And about 15, 20 minutes, John Meyer did a great job, speaking in front of the ballot board. I went up there and mumbled for a couple of minutes. And they said, yes, it is one constitutional amendment. So with the Attorney General and the ballot board, we says, we're good to go. So we started collecting signatures. One of the toughest things that I've ever experienced in my life is trying to get 5 people agree on what the initiative petition should look like. I don't know how they ever got the U.S. Constitution done. I really don't. Right, I mean... which version are we on? Are we on 38 about now or something like that?
Wow.
Right, so I think we finally got a petition, and it is so loosey-goosey in the rules. You think you Ohio Revised Code, you follow the code, and that's exactly what you do. No, not really. That's really that's an illusion. It's just it's a guideline. That's great word. There are abbreviations. Dante Lewis, God bless him, he was great. He said, no, not really. We don't pay attention to that. So I said, oh, okay, but we thought we were, and then there were a couple other things, but what we've come to realize is that the Board of Elections, what happens is when you dump all of your petitions, by the way, we have to get 413,000 voters to sign these petitions. Now, if we want to get it on the November ballot, November 2025, we have to have it turned in to the Attorney General or Secretary of State by July 2nd. That's a heavy lift. That's like 20,000 a day. This year. But what I did ask at the ballot board, I said, well, wait a minute, what happens if we can't get all the signatures? Rose says, well, we can't really answer any questions, but I'll have my staff talk to you, after we make our decision. So after they decided it was one constitutional amendment, there were 2 very nice young ladies, the staff members, so I had a couple questions. And one of the questions was, well, if we don't get all the signatures in, can we carry that forward to 2026? And she said yes. But the other thing she says, I can't give you any legal advice at all. So that's the one statement that they make. He can't give you any. I said, well, could you explain it? Well, no, that's legal advice, nothing at all. So, quite frankly,
What she said, her answer was not necessarily valid.
well, we think, and we've worked really hard on this. But when we give the petition to somebody, the first thing they say is, "No, that won't work." I said, "Are you sure?" "Oh yeah, back in '02, we did a petition and we had to put it, sideways or something like that." And we're saying, everybody's got their own opinion on what these petitions look like. You would think that the Secretary of State would put, here is a prime example of what it looks like. Not just words, but here's an example of what it is. But they don't want to do that, because that will help you.
Right.
They don't want to help you. Is that insane? They're working for us. I can't believe I've been doing this for 10 years on property taxes. I could not, when I thought about it though.
They don't want you as a peasant to interfere with their intelligence because they're superior to you. That's typical from caveman days.
The first thing that they ask me though, when I'm talking in front of groups, and they say, "Brian, before I sign anything, you have to tell me what you're going to do to replace all this money." That's what they're saying. I'm not going to sign it unless you tell me exactly how they're going to replace all this money.
I've had somebody do that exactly. They did it. They wanted
Right?
something because they wanted to know that information. Well, that's not what it's about.
I live in Concord Township. Andy Rose, nice guy, does a great job. He said, "How are we going to pay for police and fire, roads and bridges?" I said, "Andy, send me a bill. I'm not saying I'm not going to pay taxes. It's not a tax. It's a service, Andy. I want to know how much I'm actually paying for fire service. Am I paying $1,000 a year? What's Mentor paying? Are they paying $200? I want to know if they're effective as a fire department, or same thing with police, roads and bridges. I'll pay it. Don't tie it to my house." That's what they have to understand. Home ownership is the foundation of our freedom and liberty. Without it, we really are just peasants. And I've mentioned this before, but I say it, state legislators, in their mind, they're saying, seniors, if you can't afford your property taxes, sell your house and move into an apartment.
That's what they want.
That is, when I think of that mindset. But I also say, well, let's take a look at schools. We have 9 school districts in Lake County. Do we need 9 school districts?
No.
How about one county district, like they have in other states, which will have one superintendent, a few principals, one curriculum director? Is that too radical a thinking?
No.
Am I asking too much for shrinking of government?
We're going to have to start thinking about it, because once in 2026, when everything comes back to the states, we need to think about it now.
So, what I've got is I've created some petitions in our latest version. If anyone wants to collect petitions, signatures for us on the petitions, we greatly appreciate it. Give it to your friends. Ask them. This is truly grassroots. When John was interviewed down at the ballot board, he was surrounded by half a dozen news anchors there, and they were saying, well, how much money do you have for this? They were thinking that we're going to have to spend, a couple $1 million, right? And you've got to have this great staff of people to go through. I said, no, it's all grassroots.
She said First Energy.
Yeah, do you think we're first thing? They couldn't understand. What do you mean grassroots? You gotta have George Soros type money to do this thing. And then in the first week, what we had was all the Republicans, right? Looking out for the average citizen. I said, this is the most idiotic proposal, amendment they've ever heard of. That's Huffman down there. So, what we're going to do, if we can get it on the ballot in November 2025, we're going to keep going. We got May. If we can't get it on May, we know we can get it on November 2026. And what I've heard is they're sweating bullets if we put it on the ballot. And you know why?
Put hurdles up for you.
Because it's going to pass. So why don't we have leaders, I mean real leaders, that can think out of the box and change this whole tax system that we have?
Right.
We need to send them a signal. We're not going to take it. As I say, we're mad as hell and we're not going to take it anymore. Anybody got any questions for me? Yes, Dr.
Do
King.
you know how much it costs Concord residents with fire services?
No, they see what they have in Concord. They've got safety services, and they've got a fire, and they muddle it up so that you really. I mean, I can tell you, we can get their monthly or annual reports on what they're spending, but when I look at the fire department, if everything is based on home values, if your home is valued more than mine, Dr. Keep, why should you pay more for fire or for police or roads and bridges? That doesn't make sense, right? Why is it based on home value?
Right.
How about number of people in the house? How about if I want to opt out of something? I can't opt out of roads and bridges because I'm going to use the roads. Maybe I want to. I was talking to somebody in Ashtabula. Guy's living off the grid. I mean, really living off the grid. He says, I'll handle my own fire. I said, well, that's very possible. Right? He said, I'll handle my own fire problems. I'll have my own police problems.
How much per capita people pay for the coroner's office?
Oh, how much is that?
Per capita, Lake County?
Yeah.
$3.07 per person per year.
Is that right? Yeah.
Okay, so it's $1 million cost for the whole place? A year? Is what you're telling us?
You know, what's the budget for the coroner's office?
The total budget for the year, $719,000.
$719,000.
So it's $3.07 per person.
And I want to opt out.
You want to opt out?
How do you opt out?
All right, well, yes, ma'am.
Question, okay, so July 1st comes and we don't have the 413,000, those.
We don't have to start over.
Thank you.
Yeah, that was a question. That was a concern that I had, that all of this work would be for now. We got to start over again. No, we just keep on going.
Now, you know that positively?
Yeah, we do. We do. They told me that. You know, I don't have it on recording, but that's what the staff members told me of Secretary of State's office.
Don't you have to have so many signatures from all 80 counties?
Yeah, that's a good question. You have to have from at least 44 counties, and they have to have a minimum number of votes or signatures for those 44 counties, and it happens to be 5% of the number of voters in the last gubernatorial election. We got it covered. In fact, it's back there. I do have. Now, what we've done. Well, okay. Well, we're going to take you up on that. We're going to take you up on that. What we've done is we were talking about how we're going to process all of these packets. Well, I've turned my basement into a processing center. Right, John? We got it covered. We've got computers left and right. We've got folders all over the place. We'll sort them, and because I did that personally on the first go around, and it was a challenge, no question about it. So we're probably going to need some help on this processing center, but knowing that we'll never give up. That's what I want people to understand. We're not giving up. We're going to give it up. We're not going to go away.
How are you gonna pay?
Okay. Two things. What we found from, I was speaking to Auditor Galloway and Treasurer Zern. And Auditor Galloway said to me, well, Brian, if we don't have any property taxes, we don't need a treasurer or an auditor. And I say, and? That sounds like a pretty good cost savings to me. The property taxes are the most costly to administer. Lake County paid $1.8 million recently for the revaluation. Now you multiply that by 88 counties. How much of the state government is wrapped around this whole property tax issue?
The software, what it costs per year.
We need Doge in Ohio.
Well, that's really what we're doing. That is what we're doing. But you don't use Doge because some of the Democrats may not like it.
Too bad.
God, we got to keep that on the down low.
Send them some Kleenex.
Well, I'm trying to. I don't understand though when I say to people, we're trying to save your house. But what we get, even from Concord employees, they say, well, if we don't have property tax, I'm going to be out of business. I'm not going to have a job.
Good.
I said, what do you mean? I said, we're going to pay tax. But what happens is that the officials are scaring the employees and they're scaring the people. That says that this is going to be chaos. Even Attorney General Husted. He said, well, the reason this is going forward is that the legislators totally disregarded all the citizens. He's right on that part. Because John Leonard and I, we've been down to the state capitol many, many times.
I think there's about 13 bills addressing different things from the Homestead Act, various other things regarding property taxes, and every single one of them are still buried in committee and they're never going to get out.
We were down over 2 years ago to the Ways and Means Committee and also this committee to review and reform property taxes. I know I'm going over. I'll try to wrap it up.
When you're done, we just need Linda.
Okay.
When you're done.
Number one, they censored my speech when I was talking to the review committee. They didn't want me to tell them. I was telling them that Willoughby East Lake will get over $8 million because without a vote of the people. They didn't want that to get out. Even Lake County residents said, Brian, you're crazy. That's not. They're only going to get $4 million. And then I said to him, now wait a minute, do you understand the difference between a fiscal year and a calendar year? Do you understand that difference? People don't. Because what was being told is that the Willoughby school, the CFO said, no, we're only going to get $4 million. Well, that's because the schools are on a fiscal year basis from July through June. So that's a deception. Also, there's a huge deception. You got to understand this with the what the legislators have done going back to 1976 was with when they introduced House Bill 920. They put in this 20 mil floor on House Bill 920 so that House Bill 920 would reduce the millage rate so that as the property values went up, you wouldn't collect any more money. But they stopped it when the inside and outside millage got to 20 mils. The outside millage is treated like inside millage. And I say to them, if you're treating it like inside millage, it's inside millage. So with inside millage, if your house value goes up 10%, your taxes on those schools will go up 10%. And the same thing with joint vocational. What they did with joint vocational, they deceived the people when they said the joint vocational schools can get 2.5 mils maximum, but it's not subject. It's outside millage, but not subject to House Bill 920. So it's treated like inside millage. I know that goes. What really bothers me is that is a deception, and they write it in the laws that they say, well, we're only collecting 10 mils on inside millage, and that's not true. All right, I'll stop there. Any last questions? I don't. Yes, sir.
All right,
seen in the news where DeSantis in Florida is talking about abolishing property taxes. Are there any other states, or are there states now that Texas?
Yeah, they're all starting to look at that now. But now, again, as Faith mentioned about leaders locally, do we have any leaders at the state level? No, they're saying, well, we got to eliminate income tax. Is anybody talking about eliminating income? I don't know if I've ever heard that.
I don't like taxation on productivity. If you're going to tax something, don't tax my house and don't tax productivity, because that's a negative thing. But if consumption.
Consumption, yeah.
Tax consumption. If you don't want to pay it, don't buy the damn thing.
Like cigarettes, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, there was one other question. Yes, sir. Wait a minute.
So you mentioned 5% based on the last group.
Can you say that again, Robert?
You mentioned 5%. We were to get 5% from the 44 counties based on the last, which election?
Yeah, the last governor's election. There's a chart there, Robert, that shows you, and what happens is if you're trying to get something from, I don't know, Ashtabula, and they've got 1,500 as a minimum, if you get 1,499, that doesn't count.
Okay.
You throw those out. So you have to get at least the minimum per the state, chart.
So this last voting we did for the infrastructure, that's not going to count.
No, this is the governor's election.
Last November.
Yeah.
Okay.
22 was it? Or I think it was. 2022 was the governor election. Okay, yes, ma'am.
All right, real quick. So we're getting these signatures.
Yes.
Should we have each county sign it? Like, say I go out to Jogga County, they should mix with Light County.
Yeah, absolutely. Good question. That's the number one problem that we saw was that, and there's a logical reason for it. On these petition packages, it must only be one county. All right? And the reason is the Secretary of State takes all the ballots and they send them to the individual counties. So they'll take all of our Lake County, send them to Dante Lewis, and then they go through each one of those signatures.
It's probably a good idea to have a few more than what you did.
Well, we said 500,000, 600,000. When we hit the 450 mark, we're going to start celebrating, but we're going to keep on going. Okay.
If you have to have so much percentage for each county, make sure you have a few more for each.
Oh, yeah. Well, what we've done is we've already established an Excel spreadsheet that basically, as we go through our processing, we'll automatically accumulate by county, and we will be comparing to the minimum that we need. So we eventually will be able to tell you, daily how we're updating that.
Why not go for all 88 counties? Then you can get that, what they did in July.
Yeah, I'm in with that. If you want to pick up a county, there's one in Adams or some of the other counties we can send you to. All right, yes, wait a minute.
Are there there's other groups doing this also?
Yeah, there was one committee, and it's John, Elaine Cross, Leonard Gilbert, myself, and Keith Davies. Keith Davies is in Cuyahoga County. That's a very large group, and they're very vocal. There's a Sarah Wolf in Hamilton County, Lizzie Keach in Licking County, and we've got Kirsten Hill and a few others throughout. But the idea is to get the petition in the hands of people, and then ask them to have their friends also get petitioned. Truly a grassroots. Yes.
Can I take multiple packets and give them to friends? They don't have to get them from you.
That is correct. Please take them, and you don't have to get them from me. Okay. I'm just the one that's facilitating. We also have them online, or if you want to send me an email, I'll send them a PDF, and they can just print it out.
Okay.
And each packet has to be a different county, correct?
Each packet has to be a different county. So if you're working in Geauga County, that packet can only be Geauga County. The same thing as in Lake or any of the others. Yes, ma'am.
Can you have multiple packets? Because if you're in Geauga, you might run into Lake.
Right.
100%. I would bring multiple packets with you, and they say, we're in Ashtabula. Here's my Ashtabula packet.
Yeah.
And that's what I would do. Yes, ma'am.
Tell people not to sign the other two petitions that are being
Which other two petitions would do?
Qualified immunity and repeal Senate Bill 1.
Oh, repeal Senate Bill 1, that's Jerry Serino's. Yeah. I'm having trouble just keeping track of my petition.
Yeah, they're out there trying to repeal State Bill 1 and honor the market.
Is that right?
To get support for Lifewise, and they're out there and they're making it sounding really good. It's a 46-page thing, and the basis of State Bill 1 is to be able to not indoctrinate the students with the DEI. But they're twisting the language, making it sound like it's something else.
If you want to write an article for us, we'll be glad to publish it for you. If you want to do that, Molly, to give us an article. I'm running as fast as I can to keep you just up with what we do.
I'm just making an announcement right now.
Right.
And also they're saying the teachers can't strike, the unions can't strike. Well, yeah, they can. They just can't do it during arbitrations.
Okay.
So they're making a big...
All right, I think we have a young lady here that wants to make an announcement. I'd like to introduce... Yes, Linda.
I was just going to mention about when you're signing a petition, you're supposed to sign it first and make sure that you're following all the rules.
Yeah, following the rules is got a thumbs up. Yeah, come on up, Linda. Linda O'Brien here. Liberty Can.
Thank you, Brian. And I apologize for being late, folks. Prior events lasted way too long. But here I am, and I'm going to, before I get to the big drum roll, I want to tell you a couple updates. Relative to the cemetery, Mayor Hallam finally came out and said, we are not willing to do anything. And that's what I've been waiting 18 months for. So as soon as he stated that publicly, I went and picked up the phone and called the Men of Honor. And they have gotten a number of things, a Facebook page going on it, a fundraising page going on it. So it's all under, I think, Chardon Road or Smith Family Cemetery. Please visit it. It's important, but so far I have people like you and I committed to $5,500 that they will put towards that cemetery. And it's not that we're not going to expect the city to do it, but with whatever we collect, we're going to do something above and beyond, because there's things to do. But the cemetery has not been forgotten. We are going to get those veterans recognized and that cemetery cleaned up in time for the 2026 celebration. So that's number one. Liberty Camp, number two. Enrollment's low, folks. And I'm not sure why, but registration closes, what you need to know, in 3 weeks. And so we've got about 50 time travelers right now, and I think 10 adults. And maybe it's not even 10 adults, but I need adults. Please sign up on the website so that I have an official record of who I have, and I can start planning and talking to you about it. And if you know the kids that want to come, please send them. A lot of new things are going on at camp this year, so it'll be fun for everybody. And then here's the drum roll. I have been asked to run for school board. For Manor. And, well, listen to this, what we've done. There's 3 seats open this time. So there's a team of us, 3 of us, a police detective, Bob Izzo, a retired football coach, Don Schultz, and then Linda O'Brien. And so we all come with a different skill set, and the goal is for all 3 of us to get in and flip that school. And bring it back to being a high standard classical education system. So if by share of hands, anybody in here within the school district of Mentor? Anybody?
I live in Mentor, yeah.
I have my petitions here. Would you please sign before you go? Yes. I have to collect petitions and get them turned in. And I think all 3 of us are going to go down and turn them in at the same time, which is going to make the hair catch on fire with some people, I'm sure. but it's time. I've been going to those meetings for 5 years now, and they've not gotten better. And we're going to just really bring this back to what it used to be, when this was a high-performing school system and get all this woke alphabet stuff out. And as far as I'm concerned, they're going to learn to write cursive. I don't care what grade they're in. So, yeah, we need to get these kids writing cursive. So, yeah. So,
books in the libraries, too.
So I appreciate your help and enthusiasm. Do me a favor, please tell everybody you know that is living in Menor about this. So we want to get into them, their minds are ready to stand up and, think about voting for all three. And I'm told, Faith, you might know this better than me, but I'm told that this year they're actually going to put a D or an R on the school board candidate names. I don't know. I thought it was on the ballot. So I don't know. But I don't care if it's a D or an R. I just think if you want quality education for your children, let's get the three of us in. And thank you for your support.
I wanted to say, what she's going to do is quite an endeavor. I watched Brian DeFranco and Denise Verdi run. It gets really hairy. You just want to. It's really hard. But you have someone. You get just tired of being fearful. Like, I'm not going to take this anymore. You were never fearful. You already. I saw you at the meetings. You got up there all the time. I live in Willoughby East Lake District, so they never let me speak at Menor because you have to be there by the constituent. So just like the Willoughby East Lake, we had Ryan DeFranco and Denise Verdi ran and they got in. We thought we had a majority then. There was someone presently at the time, was she still president at the time, a true conservative. I'm going to say it right out. We don't have that anymore. Ryan DeFranco had to move due to family issues and so forth, and then Denise Verdi was left behind. And without a majority, it becomes a mob. It really becomes like a mob. I've seen it. Make sure your school representatives understand the budget. I have seen, and you have seen this too, they're just rubber stampers, okay? When Brian talks about the $4 million, that's really $8 million from the property assessment taxes, they do not think they have the ability to reduce their budget, the school boards. They don't even understand how their finances work, and you know why? Because they're kept in the dark on purpose. I have seen this. My husband has seen this. Go through the budget. I'm not saying they do it on purpose. I'm saying they're elected and they're kept, I'm sorry, I'm going to say this, they're kept in the dark by the superintendent and by the fiscal officers. Would you disagree?
No.
Brian?
I agree. I don't know, but if I may say something. One of the first, this board that's on there now, but we're in the minority, they went and actually changed the reporting relationship. The superintendent is supposed to report to the board. And they said, oh, no, we don't want that. You can be the boss and we'll report to you. So guess what? Day one, the superintendent's going to be sitting in the office, in the audience, because he will not be our boss any longer. And I will tell you that Mentor has lost over 1,000 students these last couple of years. Wow. They haven't dropped one dime of expense, and now they're crying, poor, we need another, what do I want? Levy. Another ballot issue for more money.
And there's 10 kids in transition there right now.
So remember, they are not poor. They need to cut their expenses now to accommodate the fact that they lost 1,100 kids.
But you never hear that. You never hear other call. And even when they accept a grant is money used for a certain amount of time for a program. And when that program runs out, because the grant ran out. But then they're like, we have to keep this program, Well, that was a grant that ran out. Now we're supposed to feel guilty when that comes up again as a voter. No. What you said about local, it is. We have to start replacing our leaders locally. I sit on city council, my husband's mayor. People say, is that right? Is that a conflict of interest? No one else stepped up. No, I didn't run. No one ran against me. What, did you mad enough? Wouldn't you say, hey, that's not right? So even in the United City Council, there's some things that we voted on that I didn't like how I had to vote, but I had to vote according to what my constituents wanted. You know, when the constituents come to a meeting, you have to listen to them. And if the one that has the biggest mouth and the most pressure and you don't like it, you have to vote for the people that voted for you, or the people that come and make the most noise, right? Right? So when you say stay local, you're right. The only way we're going to flip this whole country is by getting more involved in your school districts and your intercity councils, you know, central committees.
Yeah, people have to get involved. Republic does not happen without an engaged electorate. Otherwise, it just slips into democracy, which is mob rule. And after that, it's straight on commie pinko land. Sorry.
I love it. I'm going to set it better myself. Hammer and sickle kind of thing coming right down the road, because that's what we are right now, slaves. We're slaves to running. And I have to tell you, Brian,
you lose your house for not paying property tax. Do you really own it, or are you just renting?
we were renting your land.
You betcha.
Okay. Now, what Brian said about talking about people moving out of their houses and then going into apartments. Well, I don't pay property tax, I rent. I go, did your rent go up? It really went up. How'd you know? I said, how much did it go up? She said, $300 a month. I said, whoa. And she just owns her little cleaning company, like 3 other women herself. She goes, she went into this apartment in Mentor because she, you know, unfortunately, you know, she's been divorced for many years, couldn't afford the house anymore, moved into the apartment, thought she'd have at least $500-600 off in her, you know, purse every month. And her rent just went up $300 a month.
But when you have the people
I said,
who love their slavery say to you, how do you propose we're going to pay for the service? How?
There's no
So you're
condition.
willing to lose your house over freaking services that never...
that you may never use either, too.
There you go.
You may never use those services. So there's so much more we could be here. I know we could be here all night. So I'm so sorry, but I just got to flush through there. Would you like to say something, honey?
Sure.
Okay. My husband, John Marr.
We talk about about how we're going to replace the funding. First of all, it's up to the state to fund the schools. That's number one. Commissioner Plechnik did a great job on a lot of these interviews outlining how a lot of the waste, if we cut the waste, the schools are taken care of 100%. But as far as the services now for the municipalities, that's where I'm going to make an argument on side. Okay, what we pay on our property tax bill, we pay to the schools. That is an actual tax because we don't get a direct benefit from it. Same thing goes with the parks, the libraries, the Auburn Career Centers, and all the other things. Those are all taxes which we're trying to bill, and obviously, because they're a tax, if we fail to pay, they can seize our property, okay, because it's a tax. Now, what about what we pay to our municipalities? Is that really a tax? I'm going to argue no, it's a service, okay, because again, we provide police, fire, EMS, roads, we have to fix the infrastructure in our village, we need new storm sewers, things like that. You know, those are all services that people get direct benefits from. And again, those aren't even collected equitably because we're collecting them based on valuation of property, but we're providing services per person based on population. You know, and again, it's not fair and equitable the way we provide these. So we need a more fair and equitable way. And again, like Brian says, send a bill. But what I'm saying is if this amendment passes, they can make the argument, well, everything will come off that tax bill, but the services that we pay for our municipality. Now, in Timberlake, only 17% of the tax bill goes to Timberlake. That's only, in my case, out of the $10,000, it's $1,700. And really, it's not bad when you think about it, that's all I have to pay, and think of what I get for it. Police, fire, EMS. You know, what's breaking us is really the school funding. You know, it's over 60% of the bill. And again, our legislators, no one really wants to go, what is really the root of the problem? Okay? And again, I tried to go to our senator and I said, look, Senator, you know, this is what we need to do. I put together a House bill for them to replace the school funding. Now look, we'll be happy if you just take that off our bill because that's what's causing people to lose their homes, that 60+% that they can't afford to pay. And then every time they have these valuations, because of the 20 mil floor, they get more money without the vote of the people. So this is where the major problem. And again, his response was, well, we're not looking at increasing income tax or sales tax, we're looking at eliminating the income tax. I said that income tax is not the problem in our state. Property taxes. People aren't losing their homes because of failure to pay income tax. It's failure to pay the property tax. It's not the failure to pay, it's the inability to pay. And that's where the problem is, that we have too many people out there with the inability to pay, and now they're threatened to lose their homes. And that's why there's only one solution. Brian, I've been with this now for I don't know how many years now. I know him 10, maybe me 4 or 5, I don't know. But either way, there is no solution. It's unsustainable, unrepairable, and the whole system needs to be overhauled. And this is the only way. You need to abolish the whole thing, start over. And again, there's our laws in place for schools that get their funding they want through other local income taxes and other ways they can do it. And again, unless they cut the spending, they're never going to have enough, because it's never enough. Willoughby East Lake School, they got $8.8 million windfall. At the last 2 meetings, the one they talked about, they already had the money spent, and if they run out in the spring, in the summer, they'll look at what services they're going to cut at that point. But at that point, they're just spending it all. And then now they're talking about putting another permanent improvement levy on, because they have some buildings now. 3 of their 5 buildings aren't new, so obviously they need to catch them up to the other ones, and now they want to put another levy on. They're looking at that. And again, it's never enough. And God forbid they talk about let's maybe get rid of some of the administrative staff. Too many, again, administrators, multiple principals on every grade level. And again, I could go on and on and on. We all know where the problem is, but what we need help with.
You could go on and on.
We have the petition out there. What it is, we need, again, get these signatures. The best way to do it is we have the email PDF. If you can email anyone you know the packet, and if they can print it out, they can become circulators. And again, just gather as many signatures as we can. Once they complete the packet, mail it to the PO box, which is on the circulator instructions. And again, if we can get this going and get as many as we can, again, they're running scared, and we want to make sure, we want to keep the momentum going. And the only way to get out there, no one's ever done it this way. Usually they print out the petitions, give them to the different counties, and we set it up that way. But we don't have the time for that, one. And number 2, we're going to use, instead of the snail mail, we're going to use electronic email. And that's the best way to reach people and get the word out there. So
the email you're referring to, is it the email that's on the packet, or are you talking about the endohiotax.org email?
Well, you can go to, there's an email on there, info@axelhowtax.org or .com, right? .com. If you follow that, you can email and request the packet, request the PDF. Or again, you can go to that axelhowtax.com also website and sign up there to become a circulator, and then you will get an email, and we'll just email you back the packet with the instructions on it.
So to correct, Jamie Callender is terming out. Jesse Stiles, who is another creation of Jamie Callender, and I liken to Chris Galloway.
Should not be taking that seat. This man should run against Stiles to go against, to take Jamie Callender's seat. This man right here.
He never thought he'd be mayor. I could tell you a man years ago who thought he never could read in church. Like in Friday, they used to do scripture in church, right there.
Nancy, I forgot to mention one thing. On January 2nd, we're going to have a meeting with the Budget Commission.
June
2nd.
June.
Did I say June?
January.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. June 2nd. Thank you. June 2nd, Auditor Galloway, Representative David Thomas from Ashtabula. We will record the meeting. We're going to be talking about property taxes, so everyone will be able to see the meeting.
And you'll be posting this meeting tonight. When?
Probably tomorrow.
Thank you. So if you've missed our meeting, you want to share with somebody they wanted to come with you tonight, they missed the meeting, share this meeting. If you don't mind, please stand for prayer. May our hands gather in unity. May our hearts beat in unison. May our souls be in harmony. May our thoughts be as one. May our ears listen to the silence together. May our glances profoundly penetrate each other. May our lips pray together to gain mercy from the eternal Father. Amen. Amen.